Thanks for coming today, everyone. I hope you find it interesting. I'm just going to give a brief overview in my presentation on ASAI and the code rules, and then we'll flesh it out more with the Q&A session with Al. So the ASAI's mission is up on the screen at the moment. And I suppose you could ask yourself, well, why is it important that the ASAI was set up? Consumers need to have trust in advertising for advertisers to be able to continue to advertise to them and engage to them. It's really important for companies to be able to tell consumers about their products, about their services, and about their innovations. And that's why ASAI was set up, in order to ensure that there are standards, that they are applied fairly across the whole of the advertising ecosystem, and where they're not adhered to, that the people involved, the companies and the media, and in this case, people who are engaging with advertisers, bloggers, are held to account. If we look at what ASAI has done over the last couple of years, we're aware that, people who come into the industry from a sort of a side way, as it were, bloggers, they're not in the traditional advertising industry. So it's important that we ensure that we reach out and we tell you how to engage with marketing communications, and that we give you that information so that you can do that. So what have we done over the last 2 years? Well, we have issued a guidance note on recognizability. We've issued press releases, we've done interviews, and we know that when we do activity, it's not just the activity that we've done that generates comment and conversation. It generates comment and conversation amongst the blogger community, and we know that you've been very engaged in this, and we've also spoken at blogger conferences. And I think it's important that we have engaged directly with bloggers and brands and agencies in this, because it's not about creating new rules, it's about looking at what the rules are and how they apply when new trends, new platforms emerge, new media emerge. I don't want to bore you with too many definitions, but I think this one is very, very important. The definition of a marketing communication, and you will notice that it talks about advertising and promotions and direct marketing, and it talks about that advertising is promoting products, influencing behaviour, and informing those to whom it is addressed. So it is actually a very, very broad definition of marketing communications, and it actually does capture quite a lot of activity. The scope and application of the code is very broad. I think this is one of the areas that sometimes isn't actually fully understood. What is our remit? Well, essentially, our code follows where marketing communications and advertising goes. That's the point of it. We were set up 37 years ago. There's no point in us still having the same remit that we had 37 years ago. We would be completely outdated. We have to evolve in much the same way as the advertising industry evolves. So it is essentially all commercial marketing communications in all media, and the rules are indivisible. Well, what does that mean? What it means is that you have to comply with all relevant rules. So if, say, for example, an alcohol product must comply with the general misleading rules and the general recognizability rules, but there's also specific rules for alcohol products. And they must comply with those. They must comply with, if they make a claim that is a substantiation claim, if they make a superiority claim rather, then they must be able to substantiate it. If they make an environmental claim, they must be able to substantiate that the product is greener than or more environmentally friendly than other products. So the book, it's quite complicated, but we are here to give advice if anyone wants advice on particular pieces of communication and they're not quite sure how to comply with the code. I suppose one of the main things we're going to be talking about today is payment and control. And this is how you determine whether something is a marketing communication. So payment can be money, it can be free product, it can be free services, it can be a reciprocal arrangement with a brand, and it's often called benefit in kind. So it's very important to remember that payment is not just money. It's where you receive a benefit that in itself would have a monetary value. And control, well, control is, I suppose, where there are the most nuances. We see control as an obligation that is created between an advertiser and a blogger in this case. And the advertiser has an obligation to pay or to compensate, and a blogger has a obligation to create content in line with the direction that has been given from the brand owner. In the traditional sense of control and advertising, the advertiser would have complete sign-off on what's printed in the newspaper or published online on a paid-for online advertising or broadcast on a television ad. The difference, I think, in this sphere is that that control isn't always as complete and boxed off. But if you, say, for example, have been asked to do a review of a product and the advertiser is saying, I will give you X amount of vouchers if you do a positive review. That's the obligation. You get the vouchers if you do the positive review. So that's the direction. So I hope today we'll be able to thrash out some of those nuances, so when you leave you'll have a clearer understanding of what we consider to be payment and control. As I said, the code includes a number of general rules, and the recognizability rules are generally considered under these sort of main headings. Marketing communications need to be clearly designed and presented so that you know that they are a marketing communication. They shouldn't misrepresent their true purpose. So if you're doing a review for a brand of a product or a service and you've been paid to do it, you must disclose that you've been paid to do it. You shouldn't misrepresent and put it forward as a non-paid for, non-biased review. Advertorials, which I suppose would be the traditional form of marketing communications, where a brand and a publication, as it were, would engage, they need to be distinguished from editorial matters. So for bloggers, I suppose, if you've got your own blog or your own website and you have material which is your genuine review, you must clearly distinguish the paid for reviews from that. And affiliate links is something that we've been asked about quite a bit in the last while. Affiliate links are essentially where a blogger puts the links on their own website and you take the role of the advertiser, because you're the one promoting the product and you're the one who's directing consumers to a retail shop, a clothing shop, and you're getting the compensation for that. So you just need to tell people in advance, I have affiliate links, some of the links will be affiliate links. It's not very complicated, it's just telling. And I think this is a slide that I've used a bit over the last couple of years, but I think it tells a good story. It's research that the Advertising Standards Council in Canada did. They carried out a few years ago. And one of the things they asked people, were they bothered when they click on or read something that they thought was editorial content and it turned out to be an ad? And 88% of people who responded agreed that they would be bothered. So that's really, really high. And I have no reason to think that Irish consumers would have a different view. So it's very important for brands and for bloggers, for social media influencers, for people who work with brands to co-create content, to understand that consumers really feel quite strongly about this. So it's not just about the ASAI code. For you, it's about your audience and what your audience will think if they discover that something they thought was created as pure review or pure commentary was in fact an ad. And it's about the trust and the reputation. And I think it's important for bloggers, and I've said this before, I think you need to be mindful of your own reputation. It's not just about the brands being mindful of their reputation. You need to be mindful of your reputation, that you don't create a sense where your followers, your audience, doesn't trust you. So that's why it's important for you to be understanding what you need to do in this area. How to disclose. This is something that we get asked a lot. And I think really the simplest way is just to say it. If it's an ad, just say, you can say hashtag ad. You can use hashtag promoted. We do have a frequently asked questions document that we're going to be launching today, where we talk about the various hashtags that we're happy with. And it's not to say that's the only way. It depends on what's authentic for you and what's clear. So for example, if you do a review of a restaurant that you've been paid to do, you could start it off by saying, I have been paid to do this review, and this is what I think. And then it's clear that there's a commercial relationship. So sometimes it's not terribly complicated. I think if you try and keep it as simple as possible, it'll make your lives easier. And again, the general guideline is if there's payment and if there's control, there must be disclosure. So the code has a number of rules, as I said. There's 18 sections in the code. You are not expected to know them all. But it wouldn't be a bad idea just to know what the chapters are, so that if you are asked to create content for an advertiser, you know whether there are specific rules. As I said, if all ads must comply with the misleading section. If it's an alcohol product, they must comply with the alcohol rules as well. And if it's a food product, it must comply with the food and non-alcoholic beverages product. So it's not, as I said, it's not that you need to know them all off by heart. But what you do need to be able to do is, if you are creating content for an advertiser, much the way an advertising agency would, you need to ask your client, are there rules that apply specifically in this area? So for example, with food, there are very specific food rules that apply about what you can claim for, say, food supplements. And these are set at a European level. For example, for calcium, you can't claim that calcium is going to make your bones super strong, but you can claim that calcium will support normal bone health. So if you're working with a food advertiser, you need to ask them, are there specific rules that I need to take account of? And work with them as in that collaborative fashion, and make sure that they understand they have a responsibility to you to make sure that they're giving you the information that you need. The misleading section of the code is the most used section of the code. We get most of the complaints that we get are based on ads that they're misleading. And essentially what it is be truthful, be honest, and have the evidence. That's what it boils down to. And just to finish off, as I said, we will actually be launching frequently asked questions later today. They will be available on our website, asai.ie. We see our role as not only dealing with complaints and coming to adjudications, but as being there to help advertisers and agencies and media and bloggers and anyone who is involved in the creation of marketing communications to do so in a code compliant way. And we have a copy advice service, copyadvice@asai.ie, and if you have any queries about a potential treatment that you want to run by us, it's confidential, it's free, and it's non-binding. So I would encourage you to use it. Thank you.